Today is Tuesday, February 27th, 2018. My name is Edna Sussman. I'm a reference librarian here at the Half Hollow Hills Community Library. We're interviewing Robert P. DeLalio, a Korean Army veteran, as part of our Veterans Testimonial Project and in collaboration with the Library of Congress's Veterans History Project. Thank you so much, Bob, for your service and for being willing to participate in our project today. Bob, where and when were you born?
I was born along with a twin brother on August 14, 1931 in Islip Town, Southside Hospital.
On Long Island.
On Long Island.
And who were your parents and what did they do?
My parents were Leon and Emma DeLalio. They were potato truck farmers in the Farmingdale, Melville area.
Now, what were your siblings' names and genders?
I had 6 siblings. The oldest was Armin DeLalio, and he was a lieutenant colonel in the Marine Corps. He was a dive bomber pilot. Wow. He was at Pearl Harbor bombing, and he also was at the Battle of Midway and awarded the Navy Cross and wounded in that battle.
Wow.
Later killed as a test pilot at Patuxent River Naval Air Station at the age of 35.
Was that an accident? Or?
Yeah, he was a test pilot.
Oh, wow.
So that's it. My next brother is named Leonard DeLalio. He died at age 83. He was a farmer and he was a college graduate and successful businessman and farmer. I had a sister, Eunice. She died at 73. Was married to a former farmer in Amityville, New York, engaged in World War II war production activities.
Here in the States?
Here in Long Island.
Okay.
And then I had a brother, Lewis. He died at age 69. During World War II, he was a Navy patrol bomber, radio man and gunner, and later graduated from RPI in 1947 with an engineering degree.
Nice. Wow.
Continue, right?
Yes. And then you had 2 more?
Oh, yeah. And George, my brother George DeLalio, he died at age 63. Graduated from Purdue University with an aeronautical engineering degree, had a very successful engineering business that is still existing today and going very well. And then I had my twin brother Richard DeLalio. He died at 57 due to a brain infection, encephalitis, had a successful fuel oil business.
Were you the youngest too?
Yes.
Okay.
And then, you want me to talk about myself here?
Yes.
All right. Then I'm the last of the twins, Robert P. DeLalio. I'm the last surviving member of the DeLalio farm family. Spent 2 years in the U.S. Army, graduated in 1961 from Hofstra College with an applied physics degree, became a Grumman flight test engineer for 5 years, slowly became involved with commercial real estate and estate, and had my own business for 35 years.
In what? In real estate?
Yes, commercial real estate.
So I think from this point now, we'll go back to when you were first in the Army.
Fine.
And then we'll pick up on the rest of that, which is
Fine.
after, if that's
Fine.
okay.
Thank you.
So
You-
did you enlist or were you drafted?
I was caught in a strange situation. I wanted to go into the Air Force, but my parents were against it because my brother had been killed 2 years before.
And he was in the Air Force?
He was in the Marine Corps. He was a fellow,
Oh, right.
a gentleman that was killed in the Marine Corps. So I had to make a decision whether to go in the Air Force or go into the Army or one of the other services. I visited the other services. Everyone who had offered anything interesting or good, you had to sign up for 3 years or a long reserve. I didn't want that. I wanted to go in and get out and cut the umbilical cord. And my brother Armin, who was the one that was killed and was the light colonel, he said to me 2 years before, go into service, but don't make a career out of it. And he had all the honoraries that any officer could have. So I decided, go in the Army, a voluntary induction,
Okay.
and get out and go back to college. And that's what I did.
So when you enlisted, it was a 2-year commitment?
Yes, for the Army, U.S. Army. All the other services were 3. The Air Force was 4 plus 4 years active duty after you got your wings, plus a 8-year reserve after that. And it was a very long, and I didn't want it.
Okay. Is that also why your folks didn't, because it was a longer service?
It was a long term, and they didn't want it.
Yeah, yeah. Huh. Wow, so you enlisted in the Army,
Yes, it was a voluntary induction, what they call it.
voluntary induction. So you would have been drafted if you hadn't enlisted?
Yes.
Really?
Because I was going to college part-time and I was farming.
Oh,
And I said, well, suppose, and I went to the draft board and I said, suppose I just go to college. They said, you'll be drafted in 30 days. They'll send me a notice.
really?
And I said, well, then I'll go down to Whitehall Street and take my physical and jump on a bus to Camp Kilman. That's what I did.
Wow.
That's,
But so they didn't give educational
no,
deferments?
not that time.
So what happened after you enlisted? How soon then did you start basic training and where?
I spent about 4 days at Camp Kilman, New Jersey, taking a battery of all kinds of tests for mental agility and reasonable thinking, whatever it is. And then we were transported to Fort Dix Airfield and flew by transport, military air transport, to Fort Smith, Arkansas, Camp Chaffee.
Okay.
And that was the beginning of basic training. And from basic, we started initially with a typical learning of how to fire a weapon, how to throw hand grenades, how to use a bayonet, how to follow a compass, how to exist in field conditions. And we bivouacked out in the mountains for quite some time, maybe a week or 10 days.
In Arkansas?
In Arkansas, in the mountains of Arkansas.
Wow.
And my battery of tests apparently were pretty good. I was given an opportunity to choose several things that were in the Army, and I chose, the only field I enjoyed was aviation.
Huh.
So I chose aviation mechanic because I had been a pilot for 4 years before.
Now, how did you learn that, piloting?
Right here in Massapequa Park.
Just on your own? You went to aviation school?
My brother and myself.
Oh, just for why?
We all flew. My whole family, there was 6 of us, or 7 altogether, but 5 of us were licensed pilots.
Wow.
And we had 2 airplanes right on a farm. We flew from the farm.
To where? To do what?
Just to fly locally. Once in a while, we'd go to New Jersey to land on a farm up there, or go up to New England and land on a farm up there, or go to Cape Cod or whatever.
Nice.
We felt like bouncing around. And it was a great time.
So do you think the Army saw that you had that skill and they...
The Army saw that I had a skill. The Air Force saw that I had that skill also. So they came to my home.
The Air Force?
Yes, the Air Force. Wanted me to sign up for it.
Oh,
As a matter of fact, I gave the gentleman, or the airman who came to my home, a ride in my airplane.
you didn't. Oh, that's funny.
But I still could not bite the bullet for the Air Force, as much as I would have wanted to.
Yeah. Too bad, because you like to fly.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so then how long was the basic training?
Basic training was a period of 8 weeks.
Okay. And do you remember your instructors? What were they
I
like?
remember some of them. Corporal Waite, Sergeant Stores, commander was Captain Chambers, and I had a lot of friends that were there. Some of them from Long Island. Some of them I went to high school with. I was
Really?
surprised. Yes.
Oh, wow. You didn't know that you were going to meet up with them?
I didn't know. And there were about 3 or 4 from Long Island.
Oh, wow.
And 2 from my own high school in
No
Farmingdale.
kidding.
Yeah, well, I was very surprised.
Yes.
We had a good time, but you make new friends quickly.
Right. And how were the instructors?
The instructors, some of them were fine gentlemen, others were brash.
Yeah.
But you accepted that. You're aware you expected. You're in the U.S. Army. And in some instances, because I realized I had handled a lot of men before on a farm and everywhere else, But sometimes you got to be a little brash to move things along, and they did. And they did a fine job.
You
No
learned
complaint.
from them.
You learned from them.
So, did you get any specialized training in Arkansas there?
No specialized training in Arkansas except as a combat soldier.
Okay.
And then when it was time for me to go to my aviation school, I was transported to Fort Sill, Oklahoma, for twin-engine aircraft mechanics school.
Oh, wow.
And I went to Fort Sill, and I enjoyed it. It was an artillery base and aviation depot, really, post field, Wally named it the Wally Post. And it was very active. And I remained there for 2 weeks. And
For training.
for training. And then I was shipped to, came home, I had a week and a half leave here on Long Island. And then I reported to the Fort Dix and was transported by bus from Fort Dix to the boat in Brooklyn Navy Yard,
Okay.
the USS Patch,
Ah.
which was a large troop transport. And we set sail for Europe.
Did you know when you boarded the ship where you were going?
I knew.
You did.
I had orders cut for me.
Oh.
It said Germany. That's all it said was Germany.
Okay.
So I know I was going to Germany. And we sailed for about 4 days on the ocean. And it was a big troop ship. And there was not very much to do. So a lot of the soldiers were essentially playing cards or shooting crap or going up to listen to a band that they had playing and things like that. And then as we approached the English Channel, they announced over the system, all watertight doors will be locked because they were concerned that there were still mines in the water from the World War II.
Oh, my
And they would
gosh.
hit the boat and blow up and have a problem.
Really?
Yeah, so it was, we accepted. I mean, what are you going to do? The whole trouble is you had to climb up. Every time you wanted to go outside, you had to climb up 3 or 4 flights like steel stairs,
Yeah.
and come down.
Wait, so what was going to be locked to avoid getting hit?
Watertight doors that close they're on rollers, heavy-duty doors. They close and they pressurize right against the bulkhead, so no water can come through.
But they're above the water line, right?
And some of them were, some of them were not.
Oh, I see.
So, yes, it is.
And the things they were, what do they call them, that were in the ocean, water that was dangerous?
The mines.
The mines. Those are under the surface of the
Yes,
water.
they were under the surface. And there were some boats getting struck by those mines still floating from World War II.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Did they then explode, or what happened?
Some of them exploded, and there was
Casualties?
yes.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. This was in 52?
No, 54.
54.
Yeah, 54.
Oh, the war had already been over for 10,
Well, that's
9
right.
years or so.
And there's still some unexploded bombs around, which we had to be concerned about. But and then we sailed into up the Thames to Southampton, and I was surprised as we approached Southampton. The pilot boat came out with a couple men rowing a boat, wooden boat, and I couldn't believe it. I don't believe in this state that we're still using oars and rowboats to get to a pilot to the main ship. And it was then a tug came out. It was a coal-burning tug, throwing smoke. I said, "Oh," and I said, "Oh, this is strange." But anyway, that's the war. I accept it.
Yeah, yeah.
So we were in Southampton. We unloaded a number of crew members and soldiers, and we departed. And the
But
next,
not the whole ship. Some stayed on the ship
yes,
to go
some stayed
elsewhere.
on the ship.
Okay.
The next point was Bremerhaven, Germany.
Oh,
So as we approached Bremerhaven, as we approached the harbor, here comes a beautiful diesel-powered pilot boat out with clean and neat, and he pulled alongside, and I said to myself, who won the war?
yeah.
Anyway, we went into Bremerhaven and we unloaded, and we were put on trains that I didn't know exactly where I was going in Germany yet. we were transported to Zweibrücken, Germany, which is right on the French border,
Oh.
South Germany.
Okay.
And from Zweibrücken is where I got the orders, you're going to Heidelberg. And then they put me on a train for Heidelberg, Germany. And when I got to Heidelberg, I called up, there's always a MP or a station for the military at these stations.
Oh,
And I told him who I was and where I was to go. So he called up the airfield. They came with a Jeep and picked me up and took me back to Heidelberg Airfield at the beginning of a very adventuresome, fine time.
now, did you spend the rest of your service there in Heidelberg?
Basically, I spent, yes, just about my active military service I spent there, yes.
Uh-huh.
And while I was there, even though I was a twin-engine aviation mechanic, and I did work on airplanes for a while, which I enjoyed, I soon, because of my interest in flying, the commanding officer of the group, of the unit, said, we want to train you for this link instrument flying because our soldier is returning to the States, rotating back to the States, and we need a replacement. I said, fine. I said, I would enjoy it, and I did enjoy it. So then they shipped me to Stuttgart, Germany. No, correction, to Erding, Germany, Air Force Base, where I trained with the U.S. Army Air Force, the U.S. Air Force,
Okay.
and I spent about 3 or 4 weeks there in Erding, Germany, training with really professional people and fine flight simulated instrument trainers. And many times, as recreation, I would take a train to Munich, which
Was
had
close to Munich?
about 20 miles north of Munich.
Okay.
And I would go to visit Munich and stayed at the USO facilities there and for a day or two, then go back to Erding, Germany, continue my training with the Air Force.
So what sort of training was this for? What did you learn to do?
I learned to teach pilots the method of flying what you would say under the hood. In other words, without looking outside the airplane. They would call this blind flying today, and it's known as instrument reading flying. In other words, you can take off and land without ever looking out of the cockpit.
Wow.
And I thought it was a lot of fun. And apparently I was very good at it because they started to ship me men
Oh,
to
to
train.
train. Fantastic.
And so
Wow.
when I had trained a few Air Force men, they shipped me back to Heidelberg. And it was mandatory when I got back to Heidelberg, we had a link, or the flight simulator trainer, that any pilot going into Berlin or any place in Europe, if he wanted to, well, Berlin, it was mandatory. He had to go through my flight service
Training.
training
Oh.
because I gave the proper radio signals to the pilots, like as they had taken off from Heidelberg, Frankfurt, caught a 20-mile corridor into Berlin. At that time, the Russians were sending out stray radio signals to take pilots off of course,
To distract them?
distract them.
Oh.
And they succeeded. And in a couple instances. So it was a little bit demanding, but it was interesting to do it.
Yeah.
And I used to fly with the pilots once in a while into Berlin myself, just to experience what was going on. And then when we got to Berlin, we were usually given what they call a ground control approach, which means we didn't have the instrumentation at that time for what we have now, what they call ILS landing system, where you can look in the cockpit and needles move in one or the other direction, giving you exactly the center line right down to the runway. At that time, it was all oral, over the phone. They would tell the pilot approaching, get on glide path. Of course, the pilot, once he's on glide path, he would know he's on glide path. They said, go up 50 feet,
Oh my gosh.
throttle back, whatever it was necessary to stay on glide path. And they would take you right into the Tempelhof Airdrop, boom.
Wow.
And this was used during the airlift very successfully.
Berlin?
In Berlin, they landed at Tempelhof,
Wow.
and it was very successful.
Were you, no, the Berlin airlift was later on the...
No, it was earlier.
When was that?
1950.
Oh, I see.
49, 50, 51. Well, it
Okay.
didn't last very long, but they caused chaos. The Russians still wouldn't allow us. It was under Russian control of the zone, so they wouldn't allow us to go out of their corridors. Otherwise, they would try and not shoot you down, but they would force the airplane down.
Wow.
So it was very interesting.
That's
And-
challenging. I mean, you always had to be trained,
Oh,
continue with
absolutely.
your training to keep up, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
How was it, did you live on the base?
Yes, I lived at Heidelberg Airfield, yes.
What was that like? How was it adjusting to military life?
Oh, I had no problem adjusting to military life.
Okay.
And it was kind of fun. And because most of the personnel there, and there was a lot of Air Force personnel there,
Oh,
they were also very regimented, and they kept themselves neat and clean, not like typical basic training where everyone comes in from everywhere and it's disheveled. This was organized organizations, and it was very easy living.
how was the food?
And the food was excellent.
And you had time off? Did you?
Yes, we had time off, we had weekends off, and sometimes we had weekend duty, like if you're in charge of quarters, or you had flights coming in over the weekend from Europe or from England. You had to have a base ready to accept them. The men would stay at the ground crew would stay readily available for service to the airplane or whatever had to be done.
So you had shifts like that?
Yes. And sometimes it was interesting. You'd actually, if you wanted to, you would be like they call it charge of quarters. And
What
you
do you
would,
have to do for that?
you'd have to be responsible for running the base. Make sure if somebody wanted a taxi, they call it taxi. If somebody encroached on one end of the airfield, get the air police there, and things like that. So it was your duty to run around and make sure everything was maintained.
Maintained and safe?
Yeah, it's
I guess.
safe.
So when you were serving mainly in Germany the whole time?
Yes, although I was in Germany the whole time, I flew all over Europe with the Army. I flew,
did?
Oh, yes.
Now, what was the goal for that?
Pick up-
Training or?
No, not training, it was picking up, if I wanted to, they had a flight going, I asked them, any flight going to Stuttgart, any flight going to Paris, any flight going to England? And they said, you got a space for me? Yes, I'd jump on board, I'd go aboard.
Oh, for your R&R?
Yeah, I enjoyed it,
Just to fly?
just to fly.
Nice.
So I flew all over.
Now,
and-
you weren't flying the plane?
No,
Okay.
no, just acting as a
Nice.
passenger.
So how long would you be gone at a time?
Sometimes a couple hours, sometimes a day or two.
Okay.
And
Was that considered your time off? I mean, how come you could just leave?
well, I was very fortunate because one summer we had a company party at a park in Germany, and we all officers and their families were there, and a lot of enlisted men too. And the executive officer's little daughter, about 4 years of age, nobody was essentially watching anything. She fell in the water, in the swimming pool. So I dove in and got her.
You're kidding?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
I dove in and got her.
This was an American officer's daughter?
Daughter, yeah, the executive officer's daughter. Her name
Wow.
was Holiday.
Ah,
And after that, but I didn't take advantage of anything, but they knew I was a responsible person.
Yeah.
So they let me really run a little bit.
nice.
And
Wow.
and they were so thankful that the next day, lovely people, and lovely people, the wife baked a big, beautiful cake. She brought it to the airport,
Oh, nice.
and all the men sat around, and we all enjoyed it.
Nice.
So it was very nice.
Wow. She was lucky you were right there.
Well, somebody else would have gotten in, but I just happened to see it out of the corner of my eye.
Yeah. How old was she?
About 3 or 4.
Wow.
So, but I never took advantage of anything in the Army, and I obeyed the laws. You know, I didn't try to push the envelope. So that was it.
What kind of friendships and camaraderie did you form while serving, and with whom?
I formed a lot, quite a bit of camaraderie with some of the local soldiers. Some of them were from Long Island, from Riverhead. One of them was our neighbor when I was a kid. So we had a nice camaraderie, but you develop new friends. And I developed a friend with a Mexican kid. No, a Puerto Rican kid. His father, they came from a very wealthy part of Puerto Rico, and they had a big taxi cab business, and we got along well. We go out on weekends and the party, go to one of the guest houses, and just have an enjoyable time.
Nice. How was it staying in touch with family and friends back then? How did you do that?
Only by letter. Only by letter. And it was they wrote to me, and I wrote to them. And the only time that it became a little bit of a problem is that in December of '54, my father passed away suddenly.
Oh,
So I got a flight home. I tried to get a flight home. It was very, very difficult because the weather was bad. Anyway, I got home, and my father had been buried that afternoon, so I missed it anyway.
Missed it. Oh. Was he ill, or what happened?
He had a stroke.
Oh,
That was it.
wow.
So then a couple days later, I flew back by Alitalia to Frankfurt, Germany. And then from Frankfurt, I took a bus down to Heidelberg. So
To return to the base.
returned to the base.
You had, you were the youngest of the 7.
Yes.
So did your mom have any kids still at home after your dad passed away?
No children at home.
Wow.
And when my father passed away and I was away, we bought a home in the village of Farmingdale, so my mother would be closer to shopping, to church, and she has many friends in Farmingdale because we had lived there for all our lives.
I see.
So,
Nice.
and she knew all the storekeepers and the bankers and everything else.
Nice.
So it was very comfortable living in Farmingdale.
Yeah. Were any of your siblings on Long Island then?
Only one, and that was my brother Leonard, the second oldest boy, and he lived in Farmingdale with a family.
Oh, okay. So you actually didn't see combat or
No,
weren't on the
I
front
saw no
lines.
combat.
When you were off duty for recreation, you went into towns and traveled with
Well, we always
soldiers, other soldiers?
Yes, went to town, and there was always concerts
Oh,
and music blaring from Heidelberg. And I had a dear girlfriend who we enjoyed each other's company.
over there that you met over there?
Yeah,
Oh, was she a German?
yes.
Oh, how did
No.
you meet?
We met at the Ratskeller in Heidelberg at fashion season. When fashion's like now before Lent,
Oh, I see.
that they have big parties all over the place, and all the guest houses are roaring with beer and verse and blood verse, heist verse, all kinds of verse, and boom, 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 bands. You know?
Yeah,
So,
papa bands?
yeah. So we had a lot of fun, and we used to travel down the Neckar River on weekends, or go to Cologne. We went to a couple different cities, visited the cathedrals and things like that. So it was
Nice.
very enjoyable.
Nice.
And she was a lovely girl. She was a registered nurse, and she also had a teaching degree, and she was teaching.
Oh, wow.
A lovely girl.
So when your tour ended, what year was that?
The tour ended in it ended in 1956,
Okay, so,
beginning of January 1956.
so Korea was basically,
It was dormant.
Dormant.
That was dormant. There was no really activity.
do you think you had more activity when you first got in because of Korea? Were you doing anything to help service the troops?
No,
in
no.
Korea? No.
The only thing we did at Heidelberg was we, through our helicopters and some of our airplanes, we supported ground maneuvers throughout Germany, like the 7th Army and a couple of armies. They were on various maneuvers.
Uh-huh.
And we always supported them with helicopters and medical transport, because quite often, one or two troops would be killed.
Oh,
And so they,
in Germany?
yeah, not through weapons, but by accidents.
Oh.
Trucks run over them, tanks run over them, or something. So they would bring them to Heidelberg, and then Heidelberg by helicopter.
I see.
Then Heidelberg would, the hospital would pick them up and take them back to their hospital and do what they ever had to do. So we supported the ground troops throughout Europe.
Good. Were you ever injured
No,
during your
never
service?
injured.
So how, in 1956, then did they give you the option to re-up?
Oh, yes, they wanted me to re-up.
And?
And they wanted, of course, to increase my grade and all that nonsense. But I was intent in getting my engineering degree.
Oh.
So I said, I'm going home, get my degree, and then we'll go from there.
You'd been in college?
I had 1 year of college.
Oh, I see.
1 year of college.
And where was that again?
Hofstra College.
Hofstra.
1 year of college, night college.
Okay.
And I wanted to get my engineering degree, and which I did. But while I was in charge of the flight simulator room, Germany received its sovereignty on May of 1956. I went from an occupied country to a sovereign state. So they were organizing the air routes for the new Germany. So I had the opportunity. They shipped to me, under my control, a couple German pilots who had flown in World War II, some other German people, and some of them were high-ranking. One was a night squadron commander. His name was Dieter Bechtold. He rose right in the ranks right after the war. Another one was Helmut Reis, who was a flight instructor in Germany, and between the both of them, I had some wonderful tales and interesting stories of their life in Germany
Really?
during the war.
So they were there during the war and they stayed
Oh
after
yeah,
the
they
war?
were in the war.
They were.
Now Helmut Reis, I sponsored him to come to the United States, which he did, and ended up in Paterson, New Jersey, which I visited him.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
but the stories they told were very, very fascinating. You know,
They were in the German army then during World
yeah,
War II?
they were in the German army.
Yes.
Yeah, they were in the German Air Force.
Huh.
And so they told me these horrible stories.
Sure.
And of course, that was war, you know.
Yeah, yeah. And what happened to the other fellow that you knew?
He became head of one of the aviation organizations in the new German Air Force.
He stayed in Europe.
Yes, he stayed in Europe. He was a well-educated, he was a Prussian. He was truly a military man. His father was a military man. He was a Prussian.
Huh.
And
So, okay, so you didn't re-up. So then you came back here
yes, I came back here.
and you started school right away, or?
I started school as soon as I could at Hofstra College, yes. And in the interim period, I started school, and I had to make a few dollars, so I started also as an engineering aide in concert with my schooling as an engineering aide with Sperry Gyroscope
Oh, wow.
in Lake Success. And I worked with Sperry for about 2 years, and then I said,
Part-time while you were in school, or?
no, I arranged my courses. I was working full time,
Wow.
at Sperry's. Sperry's, it was a set thing, so I took mostly night courses.
Oh, I see.
So which were many GIs were doing that at that time, and I finally got my degree in 1961.
Which type of engineering was that?
Applied physics.
Oh,
Applied physics,
oh,
which is a whole general engineering,
Course.
assortment of everything.
Oh, I see.
Electric, mechanical, fluids, everything.
oh, I see.
Math, you know. And after that, I got out of graduating from school. I also met my wife there,
Okay.
June, at the college.
At the college?
At the college. And then I got a job with Grumman Aviation, which I enjoyed. I got a job in instrumentation, aircraft instrumentation.
Well, that was related to what you did?
Oh, yeah. It was interesting. Well, it was related to setting up airplanes for tests. In other words, check their airspeeds. But this was all done with the new computer systems coming out, and these were all test airplanes.
Oh, I see.
So they all had to go into the laboratories and be calibrated and things like that. And carrier landings, how the landing gears collapsed when they hit the deck and things like that. And aileron control, all the mechanics of flying were monitored and tested. And that was one of our jobs, to calibrate all these various information from an airplane. And
Was it for any airplane or military only?
any Grumman airplane at that time.
Okay, so it could have been a commercial, or could it?
Well, we had commercial
military?
too. We had the Gulfstream 1 and 2 at that time was coming out. And then we did some calibration on that too. But that was a civilian aircraft.
Okay,
So that was,
and you did military also?
yes, military also. But majority for me, was the military.
Okay,
And that was the fighters and the bombers and things like that. They didn't make bombs, they made ground support equipment, the heavy fighters, you know.
you think your military training, your specialized training, when you learned about the flying,
Well, I believe that's why I got the job so readily,
oh, yeah,
because I had all this background in military. Plus, I had previous training with the Air Force at Gary Air Force Base.
right, okay.
And
Gary, where's, in
and that was in
Indiana?
San Marcos, Texas.
Oh, Texas.
San Marcos, Texas.
When were you there?
I was there after I left basic training.
Oh,
And right after I left basic training, I said, no, I made a mistake. I went to
that's
Gary Air.
Arkansas.
Yeah, that was Camp Chaffee, Arkansas. Then after basic, when I got my approval for mechanic school,
Oh, right,
I went to Gary Air Force Base, Texas,
okay.
for aircraft maintenance, and basically that was it. And we were given airplanes coming back from Korea to fix,
Oh, really?
yeah, and repair, and we didn't repair, we were learning. And we had a lot of fun, and that was an 8-week course.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I think it was 8 weeks, yeah.
And after that, that's when you were shipped out?
Yeah,
Okay. When you returned home, 56,
yeah, 56, on January 29th of 1956. I
how
was
were you?
discharged.
You were discharged. And then you lived at home with your mom for a while?
For a short while.
How were you received by your family and friends?
Fine,
Yeah.
no problem at all.
How was it readjusting to civilian life?
I had no problem at all. I had no problem at all. But I wanted to go back to one thing.
Yeah,
When I was in Heidelberg, leaving on the train to go to Bremerhaven to ship out on the USS Derby, which was a troop transport,
to go home?
to go home,
Okay,
there were some prisoners that had to be taken back to the States for discharge, with dishonorable discharges and some for incarceration.
they were Americans?
Yeah, American soldiers.
Oh,
So they put a 45 on me, and they said, you're a prison chase now. So, and they gave me one guy, here, he's your charge. And they told him, you stay with this guy, and you'll be taken care of. So he was all right, but a couple of the other guys were rough. They had I really had to watch them. And then we got to Bremen. They took our weapons away, and they put them in a special section of the boat, of the troop transport.
locked up? Or
Yes, locked up.
Okay.
Well, not really locked up, but being watched,
secure?
secure. Now, on a way, on a train, and on the boat returning, they were bragging. There was about 8 or 10, maybe more than a dozen, bragging. Oh, we beat the Army out of 2 months. We beat the Army out of this and that. And they had their uniforms on yet and everything. And then when we got to Brooklyn Navy Yard to be unboarded, they were taken in a special bus back to Fort Dix, where we were all going to. We got back to Fort Dix, and they came to the mess with us for 1 or 2 days. And then one day they came in there all disheveled with old clothes and just raggy clothes. And what the Army did, they disrobed them, and they threw bundles of clothing and shoes in the middle of the floor and said, "Get dressed."
Oh, my.
And they rode them out of the base. And I said to myself, they beat the Army.
Yeah,
They didn't beat anything.
yeah.
And it was so sad, you know.
Wow. Why were they prisoners? What types of things could they have done wrong?
Well,
They were going to jail.
Drunk, usually drunk alcohol.
Oh, I see.
And fights.
Ah.
And some guys, it's amazing how you can be just so, such an irritant in a group of soldiers. I saw that in the Army. Such an irritant to people around them.
You think they do it on purpose to get discharged?
One fellow did. He was from Elmont.
Huh.
He
Long
was-
Island?
Yeah, he was a wise guy. And he was a wise, he did it just on purpose. A nasty son of a gun.
Wow.
And to sum it all up, I said, yeah, they really beat the Army. They beat themselves. Because now you can't vote, you can't go on a government base, you can't get a government job, you are, and a couple other things I forget, but it's not very pleasant.
You can't vote
No, you can't vote.
forever?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
yeah. If you have an honorable discharge, a dishonorable.
Wow. So that lasts through your whole life, that
Yeah, yeah.
problem.
Yeah.
So why would they do that? The stupidity, or they just really want it out, or?
Well, they were stupid. They're stupid. But you often wonder when you're in the service, you see men doing stupid things. You know, when you go in the induction hall, there's a yellow line, a white line, and the pictures of the president and the commanding officers of that group. And the officer says, "You have the right to go out the back door if you do not want to become a soldier or be inducted. If you cross that line, you are to obey the laws of the Constitution and the U.S. Army." So they're telling you, once you cross the line, you're a soldier now.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, when that door closes behind you, you do think, you know, my life is going to change, and it does. But, and some of these, and surprisingly enough, a few men did walk out the back door.
Well, isn't that a dishonorable discharge?
No, because they haven't been inducted yet.
But how come they have the choice if they were drafted?
They'll probably get another notice a month later.
Oh, really?
Go back. Well,
To
yes.
come back. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't realize there were that, I mean, it wasn't a huge percentage
No,
probably,
not a huge percentage.
but enough so that it was a group that had to be watched on the
Oh,
trip
yes.
home.
Yeah.
Have you remained in contact with any fellow veterans?
I remained in contact with a few, but a lot of them immediately, who I knew particularly from this area and elsewhere, they moved away, relocated.
Oh, I see.
So I lost contact with them.
Now, going back a second, you said you went to Hofstra, you got your degree, and what year did you get married?
I got my degree 61,
Yeah.
and got married in 62, 1962.
And when were your children born?
My children were born 2 years after that, every 2 years, 5 children.
Nice.
Yeah.
And did any of them join the military?
No, none of them joined the military, even though I espoused it. Even my grandchildren now, they're so anti-military, I don't understand why, except
Really?
my one grandson now. And he's the one that my son prepared everything for him, and he's very active
Nice.
in space programs at his school in Maryland, and he went with us on a couple trips to Washington, to the museums.
Nice.
So he's a wonderful little boy.
Yeah. How many grandchildren do you have?
10.
10. Wonderful.
Yeah.
So, are you a member of any veterans organizations?
No, not a member of any veterans organization. I attended a few meetings of the Veterans of Foreign Wars and a few other things, but that just was for me because they most of them were, not most, I shouldn't say that, but were big drinkers.
Oh,
I'm not
really?
a drinker. Yeah,
Oh.
I'm not a drinker. I never.
Yeah.
I'm no non-alcoholic guy.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, but I used to help set up parties at the Amityville one, Veteran of Foreign Wars, and some other ones. But I never actually signed as a member.
Okay.
And then basically that was it. But however, now, in the last 15 years, having been active in the aviation field for so long, in 19, I was very active as a pilot. I had my own airplane, a couple airplanes. And then in 1989, I suffered a severe heart attack,
Oh, wow.
which immediately took away my license.
No kidding.
Oh, yes. You're not allowed to fly. I can fly as a passenger, but not as a pilot in command.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And I joined several, I belong to 4 aviation organizations now
Oh, nice.
here on Long Island. And the activity is around Bayport, Long Island, the Aerodrome
Oh.
Society, Antiquers, and a few other things.
And what does that do? What do you do?
We fly old airplanes, the old antique airplanes. And there's,
So you're allowed to fly?
I don't fly, I fly as a passenger.
Oh, I see.
I fly, but I enjoy the ambiance of
Sure.
of these old airplanes because I used to own a couple.
Right, right.
And my children, my grandchildren come, they enjoy it too.
Very nice.
And you develop a camaraderie with the members of my own age,
Yes.
and meeting the personnel.
Yeah.
Some of them, a lot of airline personnel, and was one guy was a gunner on a B-17 that was shot down, and we meet these interesting people who
Yes. Yeah.
have interesting lives.
Things
you know?
in common too.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah. And we even had in our group a German Luftwaffe pilot who shot down 5 Allied airplanes.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I think he's not still alive. He may be dead now, but he told some interesting stories. He
Sure.
wrote a book, and we all enjoy these various stories.
Yeah, very
And
nice.
we have a museum out in Bayport, which
Oh.
we established.
Really?
Yeah, nice little
Very nice.
of antique airplanes, antique engines.
Is that open to the public?
Yes, it is.
What's
on
it called?
Sunday. Bayport Aerodrome Society. You can go on the web and pick it up. And
Nice.
now, our first meeting of this coming year is this coming Sunday.
Okay.
Because now the weather's warming, everybody's getting out to fly, and that's it.
Nice. I'm glad to know that. I never knew that.
Or you should, if you're interested in aviation, right,
Yeah.
you know everyone, come down. We open hangar doors, all the biplanes, and a few home-built airplanes that people make,
Interesting.
and
Wow.
a couple pilots from Australia.
Very
And so
nice.
it's very interesting.
Yeah.
Nice. And we have a meeting,
Yeah, yeah.
and a coffee
Camaraderie.
pot and
Yeah.
cake and stuff like that.
Nice. Very nice.
So it's nice.
How do you think your military experiences affected your life? What life lessons have you learned from the military?
I don't think it affected it too much because I always lived a pretty orderly life, but I enjoyed the getting out and traveling around Europe. You know, things were quick. Before that, when I was on the farms, you going somewhere. You say, well, I got a plan on that, this and that. You put your stuff together, next week. But when you're in the Army or the military, they walk in, hey, DeLalio, get on the airplane, it's leaving in a half hour. And you pack yourself quick and you're gone.
God, nice.
So things move so fast, you know?
And you traveled a lot.
Yes, I did travel a
That's
lot.
wonderful.
Yeah.
How do you think your military service impacted your feelings about war and the military in general?
Well, I certainly don't like war, but I think the military is not taken in high esteem in this country. Which you go to Europe, you'll find the military is taken in very much more high esteem, but here it's different, which I'm sorry to see.
Yeah.
I wish the military was taken in.
I think it's gotten better.
Yeah, it has gotten better. And when I first got out of the service, really no one ever said, thank you for your service or anything like that. Nothing. It was
Really?
as a matter of fact, in Texas, there was a sign on the lawn, which I couldn't believe, said, dogs and soldiers stay off the lawn.
Oh,
But So don't bother you. That's part of being in the military.
Really? Oh, God.
So, and now a lot of places I go, people say, "Oh, thank you for your services," and I don't really understand why, because it wasn't. What changed? I don't know.
I think people are more aware how important the military is, even in peacetime.
Well, I hope they are.
I think so. I think it's gotten a lot more appreciative of what you did. And I think more young people are interested in learning about it. I hope.
All right.
I hope.
Yes, you hope.
What message would you like to leave for future generations who might hear this interview?
The message I'd like to leave that I think every youth, men and women, should make a contribution to their country, either in some kind of military service or some kind of government service, because we need you.
Yeah.
That is my true feeling. And I think all young people today, particularly in high schools, should take a trip to Normandy and stand at the Normandy beachhead, at Pointe du Hoc, and at Omaha Beach, and look down at that water and say, what went on here in World War II? As a matter of fact, I did go there.
You did?
Oh, yes. And I looked down, and my wife and I looked down. Any museum, I'm there. And I looked down at it, and I was so moved by it. And there's cemeteries all over the place. I went down to the beach, picked up a stone from Omaha Beach, and the other one, I picked up a stone from Utah Beach, and I got them in my home today.
Nice.
And then my wife continued to travel through France to various war memorials and cities like, I forget what, where the paratroopers landed, St. Mary Glace, #1. And we traveled and San Michel and all over.
Nice.
And that's the way I feel.
It's very important. It's good. It's good.
So I think,
You can tell your grandchildren about all that.
oh, I have, and I told my son,
Good.
I said, I'll even pay for them. I want you to take them to Europe, particularly visit the World War II memorials. And then while I was in the Army, I flew over the Siegfried Line and the Maginot Line, and I looked down, and then we flew across the English Channel. I looked across the channel and see the white cliffs of Dover, and they are white.
Really?
Oh, they're white, they stand right up. And I said to myself, I can't believe that this 15 or 20 miles prohibited the Germans from coming over, but it did,
Wow.
which was fortunate.
Yeah, yeah. Very interesting. Wow. Is there anything you'd like to add that we haven't discussed?
No, let me see,
Maybe we skipped around a little bit from your notes.
no, nothing, we've pretty much encompassed it. I can elaborate on certain things, but basically we've covered everything.
Covered everything you wanted to
Yeah.
share?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Well, Bob, thank you so much for your memories and for your service especially, and for telling us your experiences. We really appreciate it.
Well, I'm very proud to have served in the Army.
Thank you. We're honored that you did.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I am proud. You know,